Global implementation projects are the backbone of scaling any business in today's interconnected world. They are, however, notoriously complex, challenging, and fraught with both risks and opportunities. But when executed well, they can be truly transformative. Today we have two extraordinary leaders who have not only navigated these complexities, but have done so with remarkable success. They are here to share their insights, their challenges, and their strategies for making global projects work. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to KPMG partner Bob Hogan and David Calabria, Treasurer and Senior Vice President of Corporate Finance for Avis Budget Group, a name synonymous with quality car rental services worldwide.
Well, all right. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for joining our KPMG keynote speaker session, where we're going to discuss the Global Finance and Accounting Transformation Program at Avis Budget Group. I'm Bob Hogan, and I'm our KPMG lead partner for Avis. And joining me today, we're very fortunate to have a senior executive from Avis. And amongst his many responsibilities, he was the key visionary for this transformation we're going to discuss. So it's my pleasure to introduce David Calabria.
Thanks, Bob. So I work for Avis, right? One of the most recognized mobility leaders. We operate Avis Budget, Zipcar, Payless, Marini, Majori, Tourist Car, Flex Car, all these things. And in about 180 countries, which admittedly, I had no idea how many countries there were in the world. It's 195. So we think we have the largest footprint of any rental car company in the world. So that's my company. So let me tell you a little bit about me. Why am I up here, right? So I started at Pricewaterhouse. Sorry, Bob. Was that Pricewaterhouse? And I specialized in auditing asset-backed conduits. And one of the companies I did was JP Morgan. And what did they have? They had ASOP, which ASOP is how Avis actually finances their fleet in the US. So I kind of had a little piece of Avis. Then I went to JP Morgan, and lo and behold, I was in their asset-backed group. And what did I do? One of my deals was ASOP, and so I was doing that. And then I came about 19 years ago to Avis. And for the first 10 years of my career, the way I explained it to my kids was I said, see the cars in that lot? Daddy got the money to pay for those cars. That was my job, right? And so then I became the chief accounting officer. And now today I'm responsible for everything that falls under the audit committee, which is accounting, internal audit, tax, transformation, investor relations, and treasury. So that's what I do. But a funny thing happened on my first day as a chief accounting officer, and you can't make this stuff up. This is literal, not hyperbole. On my first day, one of our biggest public competitors had accounting irregularities. So you can imagine what happened. I got phone calls from the CFO, the CEO, the board, everybody else going, do we have the same issues? And the way I answered was this: no, because we have extraordinary people. That was it. That was how I answered. But the honest one was, I had no idea. It was my first day on the job. I don't know. So I'm trying to figure it out. So I took a year to learn my job, kind of went around and said, okay, well, do we have these issues? What's going on? And look, there's a lot of challenges that we're going through. So Avis, I love Avis. That's why I've been there for so long. And the reason why I love it is a global, highly levered, non-investment grade company. It doesn't get more fun than that. Like, right? That's fun. That's super fun, especially from a treasury standpoint. But also, if you think about what it takes to run a rental car company, you realize, we are a rental car company, we're an IT company, we're a finance company, we're an insurance company, we're a little bit of everything. People don't recognize that. Think about it this way: we're taking a $40,000 asset and renting it for the same amount you rent a tuxedo. And just as many bottoms hit those pants as our cars, right? So it's kind of hard when you're thinking of it that way. We pay more bills than McDonald's. Avis Europe was its own separate public company, and they didn't invest in their infrastructure. We bought them in 2011, right? So we had to deal with that. Disparate processes, disparate systems, different everything, multiple GLs. That's the challenge, right? And so how do we go and get that to be? So we had this first RFP, and we said, okay, we want to do an RFP to go find out what are our issues, what can we go and fix? And we said, okay, well, we know 80% of what we do. We need someone to come in and tell us the 20% that we don't. Seems easy enough. So we said, but hold on, we need someone to be culturally sensitive, right? Avis is a unique culture. Like I said, we have a lot of different things that everybody does, and we try harder, right, for some of those who might remember that. So we wanted to make sure we were partnering with someone who understood and appreciated who we were and drive us for change, but keeping the spirit of who we were. That's not easy. So the question then becomes, why KPMG, right? So that's the first thing. Why KPMG? What set them apart? When we did the RFP, we said, okay, we want somebody to come in and tell us what we need to do. And you're basically asking our employees, how do you do your job better? Like, what makes your job hard? How can we go and make it better, faster, quicker? And the fear is you're going to go in there and they're going to say, well, I don't want to tell you because I might lose my job, right? Because you're going to try and do it quicker, more efficiently. So we did the RFP, and what was interesting was I didn't actually have a relationship with KPMG at the time. Not at all, actually. And so I figured I'd bring them in just to start building that relationship. And a funny thing happened along the way. They didn't ask a lot of questions leading up to it. Not a lot. And I was like, well, these guys clearly aren't going to get it. But when they came in, they presented really well, and their process kind of stood out compared to others. And then I'm an inquisitive guy. Maybe you can tell already. I started asking a lot of questions. And so did other people in the room. And the partner answered, obviously, and the directors answered, and all that. But so did the junior people. So from top to bottom, we got answers from the people who are going to be boots on the ground, talking with my analysts, with my team, around the world. And it was really impressive. And we said, okay, they seem like they can get our buy-in. They seem like they're good. Let's go and give it a shot. So they went around and asked the people what could they do better. And they came back after that time and came up with more. It was actually more than 700 individual pain points. It's pretty crazy. And I had to go and admit that we actually knew 20% of what we did, and they filled in the 80. It's pretty embarrassing, if I'm being honest. So I had to go back to the CFO, who I'd said, hey, we don't have the same issues because we have extraordinary people, and I changed it. I changed it a little bit. And I said, we do. I was right, half right. We have extraordinary people, but they're using ordinary tools. And can you imagine if we give those extraordinary people extraordinary tools, what we can accomplish? And that was the birth of our transformation project, which we affectionately call the Accounting Modernization Program, or AMP. It's really a whole finance modernization program, but AMP sounds a lot more fun than FUMP, right? So we went with AMP. But it is the whole thing. So after that piece, we said, okay, well now we've got to go RFP 2. Now we figured out what our problems are. We kind of figured out what we want to do. What is the next step? Well, we knew we needed to go and say, we need help again for someone to tell us, how do we enable this with a system? How do we go and change all our processes? Because it's not just getting into a system. So one of the things I should tell you is we used to be Sendin, right? Avis Budget actually used to be Sendin, if you know that company. It was a big conglomerate of all travel companies. And we spun off, we were RemainCo. And we were on GIAC at the time. And we just kind of lifted up and shifted it into Oracle on-premise. So that's what we were on. So we need to figure out what we're going to do with all of that. So we went and said, hey, KPMG, we need your help again, because they were really good. What they did that set them apart was they found those 700 pain points. They got their buy-in. Our team knew them and trusted them. I was in a room talking. I was listening. I shouldn't say talking. I was listening to KPMG talk to our IT team about our front-end legacy system. And afterwards, the IT team came up to me and said, whoa, they were just speaking our language. They knew the system just as well as us. Like I said, impressive stuff. So it was really good. So we had to figure out what we were going to do. So we said, okay, well, we want to standardize our procedures around the world. We want one global general ledger. And we want to optimize visibility and analytics. That was what we wanted to do. That was the most important piece. But the hard part is that it was the biggest project in the history of our company, right? Biggest one. It's the biggest investment in the back office ever. And I knew our company was only going to do this once, right? And I used to tell my team, we got one bite at this apple, and I want to get right to the core. Like, let's go and figure out how we can do this. And so we went after every process around the world. But we had to go and figure out what technology were we going to use, because we didn't know we were going to use Oracle on-prem, in the cloud. We said, okay, well, we want to do it. We want to do in the cloud because, again, I wanted all the benefits of the future enhancements, because I bet you there's a lot of people in here who've been on Oracle on-prem, and not the most current version, because it takes time and effort and all these problems to go and enhance. I want it on the cloud, so I didn't have to worry about that. I always wanted to be at the forefront. So we started to look at the usual cast of characters, and we realized Oracle was ahead, right? So you start to think about it. We went and said, okay, we need the EPM suite. We need the financial suite. We need procurement. We need PaaS middleware, right? We needed everything. We started looking at everything. And at one point, I was able to say that Avis was the largest and most holistic user of Oracle's cloud products. I don't know if I can say that anymore, but we were, right? We were at the forefront. We were an early adopter. Our vision was actually a little ahead of where the system was at the time, and they worked with us. And so when we chose the system, we actually were choosing the partner that we could believe in to get us to where we wanted to be. And that was really important, because we knew where we wanted to be wasn't where technology was at that time. It's crazy. But it was a leap of faith, and one that we took knowingly with our partners at KPMG, with Oracle. So we had to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to go about doing it? Are we going to do individually, big, this, that, whatever, all that? We said, okay, no, we're going to do a global design, and we need to get stakeholder alignment, leadership support, change management, right? Biggest project we've ever done. But we needed to set the foundation, right? So our old CFO used to tell a story about there was a school, right, near his town, where they ran out of room. They just ran out of room, so they had to build a wing, right? So they built a wing for new classrooms. And a few years later, they wanted to build a STEM lab, and they wanted to build it on the second floor. They were going to build a second story on the new addition. And the architect goes, what are you doing? You can't build a second story. We didn't design it so that you could build upon it. So they had to tear it down and start over again. It's ridiculous. And so we wanted to build a foundation as we were going through this implementation so that we can constantly build upon it. That was important. So when we decided what we were going to do, we said, okay, well, we're going to go in the US first, which earns about 70% of our revenue, putting on my IR hat now for a second, 70% of our revenue. But it was also, if you think about it, the most simplistic. You don't have VAT, FX, right? All the global individual country rules that you have. But we wanted to make sure we had a global design that worked that we could build off of. So we went to the US first. Then we went to Australia and New Zealand with having that success under our belt. And that was in the middle of COVID. That was a little crazy, right? Everybody had to deal with that. But we lost 87% of our revenue overnight. Right? Yikes. One of our public competitors went bankrupt. Yikes. Right? We were able to navigate through it, thank goodness. But I ended up going to KPMG. Probably doesn't want me to tell the story, but I went to KPMG and said, hey, I want to still implement in Australia and New Zealand because we actually have the lowest volumes that we're ever going to have. This is going to be the easiest thing we're ever going to have, but I don't know if I could pay you. You got to trust me that someday we'll get to it. He was like, okay. Right? That's the relationship we had. So you guys don't have that relationship. Don't ask KPMG for that. Right? So for us, it was good. Right? It was a good thing. So then we went to EMEA, and that was the hardest. And we knew that. And we said, okay, well, how are we going to do it? We can do it by country. We're just going to do a big bang in the countries. For all the countries, that's what we did. It was the best way for us to do it. And we did a lot, and we were able to do more with less. So where are we today? I just said it. We actually went live around the world this past February. So we're using it. We're live, doing it. It's great. We're not done, right? So there's still a lot to do. But what was the success? Why were we able to do this? What got us to that point? Right? And that's the key when you start to think about it. So when you think about what the keys to success were, another quote I like to say all the time, everybody wants change until you want them to change, right? No secret to that one. So change management was critical in going through. And the biggest key, you got to say no. You have to say no. When someone wants a deviation, no. Unless they can prove why, it's got to go through your regional business process owners, because we're global, your global business process owner, the steering committee, and then admittedly it came to me. Right? And I was on the steering committee too, but I had the final say. And you got to be able to say no, because anytime you deviate it, you're going to make a project of this size fail, right? So we went through that. But that quote is one I used a lot, and I'm sure a lot of the KPMG team that's here today is probably sick of me saying it because they've heard it a lot of times, because it is important. So what else did we do? What were the keys to success? I actually said it before, right? Stakeholder alignment is absolutely critical. Executive leadership support. You need to have that buy-in and the belief, because otherwise, people are going to go and do this implementation, and if people down below don't think that the people above care, then they don't care. They got to see your passion, they got to see you care, and they got to understand why. It's important. It's really important for that engagement. Change management was key. Not only did I, but a lot of people on my team kept going around the world. We did phone calls, of course. We did Zoom, of course. But we actually did a lot in person and said, this is why it's important, guys. This is why. This is your legacy. You're building your legacy, right, at this place. It's pretty exciting. And we gave them little plaques and all that at the end and all that, because you should remember this. We're a rent-a-car company, so we're a little hokey. We're like, when you look in the rearview mirror of your career, right, and you remember what you did, it's impressive, right? And we're really proud of it, really proud of it. You also have to have the right partner, right? It actually matters, right? Those relationships matter. That story I said during COVID, like, not everyone's going to be able to do that. Like, that matters. Understanding our business, understanding our systems, understanding what we want to try and accomplish, that matters. And it was important for us. And that's part of our success. And then, like I said, you got to see that strategic vision through the end, all the way through the end. And that doesn't mean you can't change or pivot as you're going through. God knows, of course we did, right? Because you start to learn things. You dig things up. You start to realize what's going on. So of course we did. We changed as we were going along. That was important to us. So the outcomes are these, of the whole project. Yeah, okay, we got savings, sure, fine. But it was analytics. The analytics was how I sold this project. When I first went in, I'm on the SLT now, the senior leadership team now, but I wasn't at the time. When I first went in, I actually didn't talk about the savings that this project was going to go through. I just went to each individual person on our SLT and said, how hard is it for you to get this information? Oh, kind of hard. Take a few days, but we can get it. And I went through everyone like that. I said, wouldn't it be great if you could just get it and make strategic decisions, or go to a more granular level than what we can today, and start to make real strategic decisions that'll help move this business? Don't you want that? The obvious answer was yes. And that's why I sold this project. We wanted to do more with less, right? And that was important during COVID, right? I mean, again, when you lose 87% of your business overnight, you got to make hard decisions, right? And we had to do with less employees. We couldn't have done that without this project. Thank goodness we were live in the US. Right? We wouldn't have been able to do it. And that was a help. And that was an advantage to us over our competitors, admittedly, for sure. So further benefits enhancements, we're not done. We are not done. There's still more. This was the foundation. Like I said, this was the foundation. So what we're building on now we can go and say, oh, well, we did buy some of these other smaller brands and they were getting a new front end, so let's put them in. Or now we want to go and globalize some of our, some of the regional things that were being done. Well, now we have a global system. I can have one global team. Couldn't do that before. Can do that now. It's exciting, right? And you start to do it. Actually, our chief accounting officer, her and I were just talking before this. She's in our Budapest Shared Service Center right now talking about AP and AR and where that could be. And it was like, starts to get, I'm a little bit of a nerd, starts to get me excited, right? I admit it. So with that, I'll turn it back to Bob here for a second, but I know we're going to do a Q&A, but I just wanted to thank everyone for their time. So thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That Avis transformation journey was enduring. It was complicated, and it really you stepped up to the challenge to squeeze that into 20 minutes. That global implementation. So that was terrific. Thank you for that. I think I'd like to invite some additional colleagues on the stage, Marin and Ryan. So joining us here are Ryan Kenney, who's a managing director and led all of the, and still leads all of the EPM work that we're doing with Avis. And Marin Hoffer is a managing director, and he leads the core financials work. So we have the full span here with how we went about this transformation from a leadership perspective.
So Bob, before we get into questions, because I need a drink, can I ask you to maybe talk a little bit about what you thought coming into Avis, and then what you found and how you thought the journey went?
Absolutely. I'd probably give you a couple of observations here off the cuff. One is you talked about having extraordinary people. And look, you can have the best consultants, you can have the best Oracle solution, but really without a team at the company level that's there to make that change happen and make that transformation happen, you can't get it done, and you're going to sub-optimize. And that, combined with your leadership and the enduring support of the executive team all the way through the board to get us through that, I think was a real differentiator. And it was a recipe, really, for our success here. So that's one. The other thing that struck me as somewhat unique as we went around this planning for the global transformation, David, you were the visionary here, and you never treated this as a technology stand-up, a technology implementation. That was a component, but I think your vision was always you wanted to look at the entirety of the target operating model, which includes looking at your processes, simplifying and standardizing, looking at your underlying organization and how that was going to look in the target state, looking where you do the work. That's important. I know that wasn't a core tenet of how you sold this, but there's a cost component around where you do the work. We looked at governance, which helped really with making design decisions. And then after go live, that governance unit kept control to make sure we didn't revert back to any of the old practices. And then lastly, from a target operating perspective, and I think you'll agree with this, Ryan, that you always had this vision of elevating the finance and accounting function away from the stigma of we produce financial reports and we do compliance and statutory stuff. Your vision was to have them operate more like a business partner with the business. And I think we've really achieved that.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, Bob. And David alluded to all those pain points we captured earlier. And a core theme we saw across a large chunk of them, I'll say, was data and reporting related. And as we think back on what they actually represented, they really kind of fell into, I'll say, 3 categories. One was just there was honestly too much data, and there was just a severe need for global standardization, as David kind of alluded to earlier with sort of that acquisition and merger with the international segment. We also noticed that theme of business partner, right? And there was just a desire for more integration between finance and the operations side, and that kind of came through pretty heavily. And then lastly was just the time. It was just taking the teams too much time. We were putting too much burden on them to be responsible for the compilation, the reporting out, the reconciliations. It was an extreme burden, and we could see that through all the interview sessions and the workshops with those teams. So there was a real emphasis coming out of Vision to say, we don't want to just attack this as a chart of accounts exercise. We want to be more robust. We want to be more thorough. We want to have a very comprehensive data model to not only just have at that subledger ERP level, but to also help us downstream in the EPM layers. And the way we really came at that was we took a top-down and a bottoms-up approach, right? So we spent a lot of time with the executive leadership team, both domestically and abroad, to hear their perspectives. What did they want to get out of this, the largest investment in the company's history, as David alluded to? And then we really coupled that with a very thorough bottoms-up review, looking at every existing chart of accounts that was in place, either from the GIAC, sort of lift and shift into EBS, but also into all those other geographic regions, understanding how they were using it, what they had in their accounts, what were in their sub-accounts, collected over 800 reports, and really just tried to make sure we could corroborate what we were hearing and point out, with the marriage with sort of the investment in the Oracle technology, how could we get a very comprehensive solution that would kind of carry us through? And I think it was a huge help to put that up front before all the deployments and stick to it through the governance models. And I think it's paid dividends. And it's a testament, not to keep patting you on the back, David, but it's a testament to a lot of your leadership and the senior leadership, the culture around really making sure that this wasn't just a compliance exercise, that there was sort of an emphasis on getting the full value of the transformation.
That's great. Marin, leading the core financials piece, could you talk a little bit about your experience with domestic clients versus full global, large global scale clients that we've encountered with Avis, and what the differences are and what you see with the two different types of companies?
Yeah, sure, Bob. I think one of the biggest challenges that we had was working through Avis's large global scale organization. We were working across vast time zones with people from different backgrounds, speaking different languages, interacting in different currencies, and even operating the business differently and engaging with customers differently. And that really forced us to be dynamic in the design that we put together. And so we worked through that in kind of three different ways. The first is really bringing stakeholders from across the organization early into the design and implementation phase. This really helped break down silos that existed for years between functional areas and geographies, and it really helped generate a lot of buy-in and excitement around this transformation journey and helped build kind of that global design. The second was to leverage as much of Oracle's out-of-the-box functionality as we could. This helped us build standardized processes, automated processes, and reduce the need for a lot of customizations. They were coming from an organization that was working with a lot of customizations that was hard to manage, and so we really wanted to standardize and streamline the processes. And the third was, like we alluded to, building and implementing a global solution, but making it flexible enough so that when you had to work through a local requirement, it didn't break the model. I think we see a lot of local requirements as we go into Pacific and Europe, whether it's billing requirements, invoicing requirements, VAT requirements, and so being able to accommodate that what was important. But I think if you ask anyone what they want, they're going to give you a whole list of requirements that they need. I need this for all these reasons, and we needed a way to make sure that, as David said a couple of times, I'm going to give you what you need, not necessarily what you want. And so, what is it that you actually need? And we came up with a process for that to manage through what we call the local deviation. And that was it a statutory requirement that we needed to comply with the law? Or two, did it support a local business practice that really impacted the top line? And so those guiding principles around local deviations, we've now embedded in the go-forward governance process. And that's really critical to maintaining the integrity of the target operating model, which we designed and implemented globally. David, those were some challenges, but not all of them. Any others that you want to share with the group?
Well, one, I would say it's nice to know that you listen to my little sound bites that I've said over the
Always.
time. So thanks. But I mean, again, I cannot underscore the challenge of change management. We were an organization that takes pride in what we do. They took pride in how it was done. And so you're asking someone to change what they had been doing in some cases for decades, right? But it works. Yeah, but it doesn't work well, right? And it doesn't work fast, and it's not giving us the granularity. And so you had to go and get people to really understand and buy into that. And so again, you can tell I do talk in little sound bites. Like at one point, I started to say, hey guys, this train has left the station, and I want to take as many of you with me as I possibly can, but if you don't want to change, then the answer is pretty easy, right? And so change management was key. And you want people to think that and understand that this is the change they wanted. It's not that we're forcing it down their throats. It's actually those 700 pain points, that we hit most of those. Some of them we're going to go get in the second phase, right? But we hit most of them. And so that was a key to them understanding what was happening, what was going on, and why we spent so much time explaining this journey and what we were doing. And it was because they asked for it, right? This is what they had said. And so it's one thing for them to have said it at the beginning. It's another one when it starts to come to fruition. We're like, whoa, hold on a second, right? And so that change management was by far the most critical piece. And making sure that you get all those hidden, I'll call them the hidden accountants, right? There's people out there in the field. Like I said, we're a large organization. We're in 180 countries out there. Like you got to make sure you're understanding every little thing that was happening in all those reports so you can say, now we want to take it and centralize it. No more accounting anywhere but accounting, right? Like that's important. And so we wanted to make sure that we had that visibility and that control, and that takes time and effort, and that was where we needed a lot of help, and we got it.
There was another little challenge we ran into. It was a little thing called the pandemic in really the beginning of 2020 is when it impacted us. And when we were in full travel mode, I think, with our team, and got into a scenario where we didn't know whether we could do the virtual deployment the way we were so used to always doing. So, but one view that I have on that is that I think we were all so overly cautious about moving into that virtual world. No one wanted to make a mistake. We overcompensated. And it ended up being a very good, we were in the middle of testing cycles and knowledge transfer, and we overcompensated with that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think at that time we were doing Australia, New Zealand, right? We're doing the APAC region, and the time zone differential is complicated, obviously, as you can imagine. Probably was helpful that some of the KPMG staff had young kids so that they were up at that time anyway. So, when we were going through, we really wanted to hold the hands of the team in Australia and New Zealand because it was so new and so different. And, and they were on, I still remember, they were on a ledger called MYOB. MYOB stands for Mind Your Own Business. A very good name for a general ledger, but not one for a global company, right? And so we wanted to go through and talk them through and make sure they understood and train them through this. And not being there was a real concern for ours. And I got to tell you, I think these guys did a great job of getting that in to the point where we almost had to say, look, we're cutting the cord, guys. Now when we're live, we got to see how Little Squirt does on his own, Like we want you to go on your own. And so at this point, like it really was so helpful. And that was critical because yes, we had the success of the US and the Americas, but having an international success under our belt before we were going to Europe was so critical because if we couldn't do that one right, everyone was going to look and say, well, it doesn't work then. It doesn't matter that it works in the Americas. It needed to work there. And, I talked about the complexity of Avis, and I can't underscore that enough, right? I really, truly believe if this works for us, it can work for anyone. Like, that's the selling point that I give whenever I do a reference or whatever it is, because it really is, we're that complex. You just don't recognize rental car is, right? So, I think we did do a great job during COVID. Thought we were able to handle that, and then we transitioned so well and easy to EMEA.
Yeah, that complexity, I think, comes through, and I've heard you describe many times that you're not just a car rental company. Yeah. You're much more than that.
We're the same size insurance company as Chubb, right? If you think about the technology that we have and the linkage that we do, and the, Avis, here's my pitch, my little IR pitch, right? If you ever rent a car, why on earth aren't you using Avis Quick Pass so you don't have to go in front of a line? You just go pick your car, select your car, scan at the exit gate, and go, right? Well, that technology comes from somewhere, and that's got to feed our ledger, right? All of that, the ancillary products, everything that you're doing on your phone now, has to go through there, and that integration is complicated. And so we were able to do that along with so many other things that we do. And like I said, we pay more bills than McDonald's. Well, yeah, because we pay the mom and pop shops who are fixing our cars, right? For some of these damages. So you got to make sure that you can go and deal with any type that comes your way. And when you're in EMEA, you have the accounts receivable, and you don't have a lot of, I'll say, payment terms here in the US. Well, you do in Europe. Well, that's different. And you have VAT tax, and you got all these things that start coming at you that we dealt with and that we had to deal with. And I think the team did a really good job of making sure we took what was complicated and simplifying it down to the functions, so that we can then explain and teach and educate and train so our employees could go and make this switch into this new world.
Yeah. I think we have time for another question here, David. It's kind of a meaty one, but your organization is big, it's global, as we've talked about. There are complexities, there are different types of businesses we're talking about. Many people were touched throughout this transformation. And we took the time to step back in the beginning, I recall, and put together a very detailed global design. And then we were faced with, how are we going to deploy this target design? And could you maybe share a little bit with the audience here about the rationale we went through, Big Bang versus this phased approach that we ended up with?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, like I said, Avis Europe was its own public entity. So when we went through and said, do we want to do this on one global bang? Well, we were looking to change every process and everywhere, and I didn't have that large a team to go out and make sure that everybody was doing that. So that was issue number one. Issue number two was, actually Avis Europe was originally on a different instance of our front office system. So even though you're building something in, it wouldn't work for them anyway. So then you got to do two different things at that point. And then you start to go through and say, okay, at that time, the EMEA and APAC teams didn't report in through me as the chief accounting officer. It was really, really weird, right? It went in through the CFO of EMEA. So we had to change that too. So we're like, okay, well, we got to do change management from that. And as you start to tick away at it, you're like, this doesn't make sense. And so I'll be honest, I went and said, hey, I think we should do APAC first. It's on an island. If we screw this up, we're not screwing up too much, right? And they're like, nope. CFO was like, you're going to do the Americas. I said, well, why don't we do EMEA, because they're on CODA and it's an old system. Let's go and do that first then. And he said, nope, we're going to do the Americas. I said, okay, well, I guess we're doing the Americas then, right? So I'd like to say there was a better reason why we chose that one first. I'd like to argue that we should have done the other ones, but it worked. God help us, it did, right? Going with the more simplistic foundation and doing that target operating model. And to Bob's point, we actually changed it. So at the beginning, we thought we were going to do, okay, we had mapped out the Americas, APAC, and EMEA. But when we were doing EMEA, we said, we're going to do it by country. And then when we got to it, we're like, that's not a good idea. Like, and then we're like, all right, well, we're going to do everything but AR, because that's really hard, especially in our system. It's not Oracle, it was our system. And we said, no, that's not a good idea. And so we actually, along the way, because of our learnings, we learned the best way to go about doing it. And it worked for us by going in that order, in that mindset, because it also then brought more people on board, that train I was talking about, and that buy-in, and people got really excited. They were excited for this to come, and Marin said it, the number of times I had to say, my promise to you is we're not going to give you everything you want, but we're going to give you everything you need, right? And that was the other piece, too, is that, we had to figure out what we could do, and then we'll come back around for, if we went and got 650 of these pain points, now let's go get the other 100, or whatever it is at this point, in this next go-around. And that was our promise, and we are. We're going to go do it, but now we can do it somewhat more on our own, right? With a little help, but not all the help we needed. Because now we've become the experts, too. We know our own system. That's good, right? And so we're going and trying to build and develop from that standpoint, too. So I know we're a little over here, but I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I think just to close out that point, the audience, if they're faced with this deployment decision, it's not that they need to follow exactly what Avis, the rationale was, but it is taking a step back and looking at the different parts of your business and trying to come up with a rationale that's sound and will be absorbed.
And if that doesn't work, I think hopefully you can tell I'm pretty passionate about this project and what we've done. So I'm always welcome or happy to talk to anybody who has questions and what we did and what we went through and why we went through it the way we did. Because I think it's something that as we look back at Avis, we're damn proud of what we accomplished and want to help everybody go, right? To me, the water's fine, come on in, right, kind of thing. So that's what we're looking to do.
Well, David, I love hearing you talk about the Avis transformation journey, and we really appreciate you coming in and sharing it with the group here. And it's just a very compelling story. We enjoy working with you on this presentation, and we enjoy our relationship, needless to say. Yeah.
Great.
So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.